everybody. We're going to talk now about bivariate data. So what is bivariate data? Well, when we say bivariate data, we mean we have two variables. That prefix bi means two. And we say this because we are measuring two characteristics of a population. For example, we might be measuring both height and weight of people over 70 years old. So height and weight are two characteristics, and we would have one variable for height and a second variable for weight. Let's compare this to what we did in Chapter 4, because people confuse these things oftentimes. So if you look at example 1 in section 4.1, that one said, efforts are made over a 5-year period to improve the clarity of water in a lake. Water clarity is measured by recording the depth at which an object is still visible from the surface. A researcher takes measurements at the same location and date, but 5 years apart. We considered that to be two populations. Population number 1 was the lake in year 0, or maybe I should say the measurements of the lake in year 0, but I'll just leave it as lake in year 0. And the second population was measurements of the lake in year 5. So two populations, but in both cases, we were measuring the same thing, depth at which an object is still visible. So let's say depth of visibility. So if we call that variable x, we have just one of them measuring the same thing in two populations. Example 1 in 4.2 was researchers wanted to determine if carpeted rooms contain more bacteria than uncarpeted rooms. So population number 1 was carpeted rooms, and population number 2 was uncarpeted rooms. In both cases, we were measuring the same characteristic, which was amount of bacteria. So that was our one variable for both populations. Let's jump ahead to Chapter 5. Build your understanding number 1 in section 1.5 was, and I'm looking at just the study B part of that problem. The students in the study agreed to spend 2 weeks sleeping in a hospital so that their sleeping hours could be measured. Then their concentration level while studying was observed and measured. So we had just one population. Namely, students. But we measured two things about that population. We measured sleeping hours and we measured concentration level. So if we were giving variable names to those two characteristics of this population, we'd have two variable names, x and perhaps y. So to summarize, in chapter 4 we had one variable measuring one characteristic of a population, but we applied that to two populations. Whereas in this chapter, we will have two variables measuring two characteristics of a single, in other words, one population.